What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Mafia podcast. I am your host, Jerry, aka Action Boss, and today I will be breaking down the Week 2 matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. The Buffalo Bills go into the game at 1-0, beating the Jets last week, where the Miami Dolphins are coming off a divisional loss against the New England Patriots, so they start the season 0-1. This game starts out at a negative 5.5 favorite for the Buffalo Bills and a 41.5 point over-under. Buffalo obviously has Josh Allen at quarterback. He is, for the most part, he is an every week play. There are going to be some games where he does throw multi-touchdowns, run for multi-touchdowns. There's going to be some games where he does turn the ball over, just like he did last week. He had 2 fumbles. But his rushing upside, the weaker defense for the Miami Dolphins definitely makes him another play this week. On the flip side, Ryan Fitzpatrick, you want to think that he's a good play this week because of the fact that they're going to need to probably pass the ball, being down in this game. But even against the Patriots last week, he really didn't have a good game at all. He threw for under 200 yards, threw 3 interceptions and no touchdowns. In a super flex league, 2-quarterback league, you'd have to be pretty desperate to play him. If you absolutely have to play him, obviously throw him out there. But it's definitely not a quarterback that I would strongly suggest. He's got another tough defense to go against this week. On the running back side of things, you got Devin Singletary and Zach Moss for the Buffalo Bills. They had a less than stellar game last week. They both had 9 carries apiece. Really didn't do anything with those carries. It was more the game script. Because Josh Allen was so efficient throwing the ball, they really didn't have to run it too much. They built up a lead. Got a lead pretty early, but for some reason they just kept on throwing the ball too. They were out there for multiple series at a time where they would just throw the ball and either get into field goal range, score a touchdown, or end up punting without even calling a rushing play. I don't think that's going to be the same case this week. I think if Miami has any advantage on their team, it would be the secondary. So while Josh Allen will still be able to throw the ball well, I think that the running game is going to be much better this week with Singletary and Moss. And just like we went into the season thinking that Singletary was going to be a in-between the 20s guy where Moss was going to be the red zone guy, you're probably looking at that case. So you're probably looking at more yardage for Singletary where Moss maybe punches 1 or 2 into the end zone. They're more flex starts for me. Yeah, you obviously there's no teams up by yet this week, so you have all 32 teams to choose from. If I were to start either of them, I'd probably throw them at either the flex or like a RB2, maybe RB3 if you're in a deeper league like that. I'm hopefully not relying on any of these guys though, but I think that they can put together decent enough game where if you got a guy, say, like Christian McCaffrey or Saquon Barkley as your RB1, you're pretty comfortable with what Singletary and or Moss can do. On the Dolphins side of things, Jordan Howard was a little bit banged up last week, which allowed for Myles Gaskin to come in. Ended up leading the team in carries, 9 carries for 40 yards. But the downside is, and Jordan Howard had a touchdown too, but the downside is going to be the game script. They're probably not going to want to run the ball again a lot like last week when they were up against the Patriots. They felt like they needed to throw it more because they were down. Again, I could see it being another similar situation. The Bills' run defense, it's not the best, but they do have some guys up front that can't stop the run. None of these running backs are really threatening or scary. These are more flex guys, if anything. I really wouldn't feel comfortable throwing any of them into my RB2. If you think back to when you drafted, you probably saw Breida and Jordan Howard going back-to-back in their rounds because nobody knows who's the starter, nobody knows who's going to get the most carries, and now we're into week 2 and it's still the same case. Now Myles Gaskin is coming in and he might command some carries too, so I'd probably stay away from the running back situation for the Dolphins. Moving on to the wide receivers. The wide receivers for the Bills, they all had pretty solid games last week. Stephon Diggs, 8 receptions for 86 yards. John Brown, 6 for 70. Cole Beasley, 4 for 58. Like I mentioned already, the Dolphins do have a solid secondary. So I'm not necessarily benching Diggs or Brown, but I would be wary of them. If anyone, Cole Beasley might get the axe for me. If you started him as a flex last week, if you were forced to start him for whatever reason, there's a lot of wide receiver injuries. I'm probably staying away more this week. I still think, Diggs is going to be heavily targeted. I still think he's going to get his numbers. John Brown, he's been, he even going back to last year, he's been a favorite target of Josh Allen. So I don't see any of that going away. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think the Bills are going to be able to pass as easily as they were against the Jets last week. I see it being more of a balanced game with the rushing coming in, but I still think that Diggs and Brown can do enough to warrant a fantasy start. On the Dolphins side, Devontae Parker, Preston Williams. Again, with Ryan Fitzpatrick not having the greatest game last week, that helped Parker and Williams not have a great game last week either. One of them is probably going to be shadowed for the most part by Tre'Davious White of the Buffalo Bills defense, one of the best corners in the league. So you're probably thinking that's going to be Devontae Parker. So Preston Williams, if anybody does get a boost, it would be him. It might even open up a little bit more for Mike Gesicki, the tight end. But again, it's a tough defense. It's a tough pass defense. If you absolutely have to play them, because there are guys like Godwin that might be out this week, Galladay that might be out this week, Mike Thomas that's out. We got a lot of these higher drafted wide receivers that are going to be missing some time, possibly missing some time. You might have to play somebody like Preston Williams. I wouldn't feel too comfortable with it, but if you got to throw him in your flex, obviously that's what you got to do. I already mentioned the tight end for the Dolphins, Mike Gesicki. The tight end for the Bills, Dawson Knox. He's still trying to come into his own. He's not really startable at this point yet. We haven't really seen enough from him. We haven't really seen that connection with Josh Allen. He only targeted him twice, or he targeted him a couple times. Like last week, he only had 2 receptions, but it's not one of those. It's not one of those tight ends that you just want to throw into your lineup just yet. We have to see. He's definitely not up there with the Wallers and the Andrews and nowhere near the Kelseys and the Kittles. So even in tight end premiums, I'm probably still staying away. For kicking, Tyler Bass, the rookie for the Buffalo Bills, he was 50%. He missed a couple shorter field goals, but he did make 2 field goals too. And he made all of his extra points. If you think that the Bills are going to put up a lot of points or quite a bit of points this week, Tyler Bass isn't a bad play. There's definitely other kickers out there that you could probably target. Not necessarily in free agency or waivers, but just in Atlanta or just in Dallas, you got Young Hoku and Greg Zuerlein in that game alone. You got Will Lutz on Monday night. So there's probably 12 other kickers that are going to be better than Tyler Bass. So you don't necessarily have to play Bass. But if he's there, the Bills are going to put up some points against the Miami defense. So he might not be a bad play at all. On the Dolphins side, they have Jason Sanders. He was 1 for 1 in his field goals, and they didn't get into the end zone, so he didn't have any extra point attempts. He hit a 46-yard field goal, so he does have the leg. You can definitely see that he has a leg on him. I don't think he's really startable, just because I don't think that the Dolphins are going to score that much against the Bills. And then finally, the defensive side of things. The Bills defense, I already talked about it a couple times. They're definitely a playable defense this week. They were playable last week against the Jets, playable this week against the Dolphins. Fitzpatrick always seems to throw timely interceptions at the end of the half, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the game. So the Bills only had 1 interception last week of Sam Darnold. But as this defense starts to gel more together, you're going to start seeing more pressure and force more interceptions. So I think the Bills are definitely a strong play there. The Dolphins are kind of a 50-50 play, only because we know Josh Allen isn't very careful with the football, so they could luck into some turnovers there. Hopefully he learned over the past week to hold on to the ball a little bit better. I don't think that they're going to win. The Dolphins, I think the Bills are going to win, so there's definitely going to be points scored against them. But if you're relying on your defense just getting turnovers and possibly sacks, then the Dolphins could be a way to go, but you could probably get better on the waiver wire and what's out there. So that's pretty much it for the Bills and Miami breakdown for this week. It's at 1 o'clock on the East Coast. I'm taking the Bills in this game. I mean, that's number one. That's my hometown team, and number two, I just think that they are a lot stronger in all aspects of the game over the Miami Dolphins. And yeah, so go Bills, and we'll see you guys for the next preview.